And we're live. So welcome to our stream with PvPoke, or well, we'll have them clarify how to actually pronounce it later. But joining us tonight we have Kakuna, and also special guests, Flark, who has been assisting with research, and AlphaFeeb, who is going to be assisting with the demonstrations today. So those are from the PvPoke side. On the Go Stadium side, today we have joining us our draft champ, Tristan Twastel, and Justin Polymer. So let's go ahead and start with Kakuna. Hi, welcome to stream. So the first question
Hello.
to you. Hi, first question for you on stream today. How do you pronounce PvPoke?
Right, I think this is the real reason to tune in tonight. The real pronunciation is PvPoke. You're right.
PvPoke. Okay.
Yes. So how I originally came up with the name was, I don't know, I've called Pokemon Pokes for short, and a lot of just chatter, and that's kind of how I got to PvPoke. You could say PvPokey, and you wouldn't be 100% wrong.
Hey, but we do want the perspective from.
You could save a syllable. I mean.
All right. Well, very glad that that's clarified. So the format for tonight's stream, we're gonna go ahead and have a little bit of a Q&A with the team, get to know who we are talking to tonight, and we'll have give some time for chat to join in. We already see 3 leaders and Ultra Citron. We've got more and more people who will be joining in. But I think Tristan and Polymers and Justin have a couple of questions for you guys, so we'll go ahead and start with that. Tristan, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, so Matt, first off, what inspired you to make PvPoke?
Yeah, I was sitting around over, I think, around Christmas, and this was like a month or so after PvP had been released. And I was kind of thinking about ways to visualize battles and outcomes and things like that. So my very first dabblings were kind of like little charts with like a timeline and little symbols, and that was kind of where that all started. And then eventually I got to programming, and it got to a point where I was like, okay, this seems like a thing that could work. So then I just kept going, and yeah, came out kind of okay, I think.
And do you run and manage it all on your own, or do you get any outside help?
I do run and manage it all on my own. However, it is an open source project, and I've gotten a lot of great feedback and contribution over on GitHub. One example would be the maximum IV function that just totally didn't exist, and somebody wrote up a function to do that, added a button, and that was a good example of something that was really helpful that I may not have time for, but I think everybody could appreciate, and will actually be pretty useful in this next update we're going to talk about.
Right, and that made me think, I was wondering, would you ever think of adding in like a, as opposed to like maximum stat product, add in like a like most attack weighted and maybe like most bulk weighted or something like that?
Oh, for sure, yeah. I think in a future update, what I'd like to do is one revolving around IVs and having a little bit more depth there, where you can pick, which combination gives me the most attack or the most defense, and then let's say maybe we add a breakpoint table or a bulk point table. That could be some pretty useful stuff.
That actually leads into another question I was planning on asking you is kind of what you had in mind in the future regarding break and bulk points, because those seem to be increasingly important. and people are spending a lot more time looking into those. So kind of what you had in mind for the future, and maybe when we could expect to see some of those things showing up.
For sure. Yeah, breakpoints are definitely a important part of a matchup because things can really swing differently, right? Depending on whether you hit a breakpoint or not. So I think to start, I'd like to do a table that shows breakpoints you can hit, and then like say the best 5 combinations that reach that break, something like that. And then maybe some kind of matrix with different combinations of IVs. And then someone was just talking to me the other day about some kind of searchable table of, IVs, breakpoints across an entire cup, which would be very ambitious, but that would be a cool thing to do.
Yeah, and I think like even to start off with, just something that shows like, just like very rudimentary, like this attack value hits this breakpoint against this defense, just with the mons and the values, and then people can take that and then figure out what IV combos they need to get there. I think that could be like a good basic first step to get your feet in the water kind of a thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that part actually isn't too complicated. It's basically doing a solving for a value in the damage formula, really, which we can dive into a little more if we want to. But yeah, I think IVs and tools that can help figure those out would for sure be a solid addition.
Yeah, I'd be super excited as soon as you roll anything kind of in that realm out. I'm looking forward to it. Justin, did you have any questions for Matt?
Yeah, so I was really curious about the break and bulk point calculator or things like that, especially like across a concentrated meta. I think that would be a really useful tool. I understand the difficulty probably in coding that. Are there any other, I know you're going to talk about some mechanics in a potential update, but are there any other sort of like ambitious tools that you sort of would like to try to tackle in the future? Obviously not the one that you're covering today. Anything like that?
That's a great question. For sure. I think one thing would be, so the sims are, 0-0 starts, that kind of thing, and getting a bigger picture of that, of, what if it wasn't always 0-0 starts, and what if there was a bit of a more grounded way to evaluate a matchup between two Pokemon? Would definitely be an interesting challenge to tackle. Because I'm sure you guys have seen, but maybe not everybody has seen, there's a guy, Pogophile, who does some really awesome work in the some of the discussion channels on the Go Stadium Discord. And he's done some really great work in some amazing problem solving, some of the issues with sims of, how they can be a little limited in certain ways and working around some of those problems.
Yeah, I think
and
that
that's
comes,
something.
so I think one of the things you're kind of getting at is Gotts has sort of adapted his spreadsheet to have like an energy remaining column, to just show, for example, like if something was to switch in, and maybe had like an extra fast move of damage, would they be able, how close would they be to getting to that like next charge move? So things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Because when I look at sims, you might see something wins with a battle rating of 700 or something. Okay, you see that, and then you look at, well, okay, how close was the opponent to their next charge move, or how much energy do I have remaining, and you look at all these different things to figure out how close that matchup actually was. So trying to do all those different things and put that into some kind of number is a challenge waiting to be solved.
Right.
Definitely, especially because some of these matchups, it shows one mon winning by a decent amount, but you look at it and the other mon died with enough energy for a charge. And so some of the stuff I think related to what you're going to be talking about later today, based on like move timing and piggybacking and that kind of stuff, could really flip that matchup, and that doesn't always show up unless you look a little deeper.
Right.
And then we had a couple questions. I think it was from either Twitch and or YouTube, asking about possible tools being able to sim like a 3 against 3 matchup or a 6 against 6 matchup, or like a 3 against 6 matchup kind of thing. Just
Sure.
to like kind of see some of your coverage and try to pick, see how your team of 6 matches up with another team of 6 kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like a kind of a matrix is something I've thought about for a while. And if you haven't seen it already, actually, Poke Battler has a pretty great one that has a lot of cool features. You can filter by type and all that. But something like that would be cool too. And even if you wanted to get a little more granular, like there's some bigger dreams out there, but maybe someday you could sim out a full 3x3 battle and with switches and all that. That's maybe a pipe dream, maybe not, but we'll see.
That would be the ultimate simulation right there, right?
Yeah. And then I was going to ask, so I'm assuming you do programming, either you study it or do it for a living or something along those lines?
Yes, I graduated way back in 2013. I had a degree in web and digital media development, and web development is my day job. So part of side projects like this are just kind of a development thing of trying new stuff and combining those with some of my hobbies and passions, and this is one thing that came out of those, and yeah, I love every bit of it.
And a follow-up question to the last time we had you on: have you evolved yet to your final form to battle it out in Jungle Cup?
Well, you haven't seen my final form, but I hear my final form could be pretty good for jungle. Maybe. We'll see if the Scyther hype doesn't get, too much steam.
While we're on the topic of evaluating 3s versus 3s and 6s versus 6s, I've really enjoyed using your team builder tool. I think it's one of the most helpful tools out there for people looking to, evaluate, like find holes in like a given 3. Have you thought about expanding that to like a team of 6?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I think like in multi-battle, we can kind of briefly go over some stuff, but here's a team builder and you can put in a random 3. You probably don't want Nidoran on your 3, but then it tells you typings and win ratio stats, stuff that threatens you, stuff you could use instead, that sort of thing. But in multi-battle, if we look at that quick, there's a Pokemon selector that I think would port over pretty well. So I think, yeah, that's definitely something I want to do, and something to make that easier. And actually, there's still a lot of room for improvement in the team builder, because if you notice, the rankings and custom multi-battle, those all use fixed move sets. But here we're still a little bit in the Stone Age. Everything has auto-selected moves, and you don't really know what. So that's kind of a gap for me to fill in the team.
I've also wondered, is there a way that maybe I don't know of to scroll down, or does it really just show the top 10? Because sometimes, for example, I'm interested to see like all the electrics come up if I'm looking for holes in like an Azu Skarm core, right? But I'm kind of curious what the more meta relevant picks, say like Deoxys D might be, even though it doesn't come up because it's not a strong electric, like a hard electric counter to both.
Yeah, you don't want to bring a Sunflora. I mean, but yeah, that is certainly in the realm of possibility.
People are asking if you're going to add a feature, like a checkbox, for if their mon is shiny, because as we all know, shinies do more damage.
Of course. Yeah, that's like inherent in the damage formula. Like it's the very first thing in the formula. So the fact that I don't account for that yet, who knows what the rankings would look like, right?
And then I was wondering, have you gotten into looking at any of the Gen 5 mons and how those might stack up against the Great League meta?
Ooh, I have a little bit. Just before the stream here, I got taking a peek at some. So maybe if we have time, we can dig into some of those. Some very exciting stuff.
Any couple names you could kind of tease right now for us of what was looking
good?
Sure.
I didn't get to look too deeply, but two names I would toss out are Audino and Whimsicott.
In other words, more fairy types.
So, more fairy types.
That's cool. Yeah, Gen 5 is a huge generation, and we can sit here and talk about speculations all day, but we do have something we want to show off today, don't we?
We do. So, if you've been using PvPoke, you kind of know how the simulations go. Put in some Pokemon. They have some moves. The moves do stuff, and that's great. So, what we're going to talk about today is, so in these simulations, moves happen right away, and they do damage, you get energy, that's all good. But actually, PvP does not work this way. And we're going to dive into some very specific mechanics, some consequences of those mechanics, and some niche strategies you can do to work around these things. So, for example, like show of hands, who has ever tapped on a charge move that you had, but the game didn't let you get it? Or when have you ever accidentally done an extra fast move? Those are all those things have predictable reasons behind them, and we're going to explain those on this stream. Yes. Alrighty, so all of that is going to be the answers to those questions are going to be present in the next site update, which I have just booted up locally here.
How soon should we expect that?
Right after the stream.
Oh, awesome!
Oh, wow!
So we'll get an early peek here at everything that's going on behind the scenes, and then it'll be up and out for you all to explore. And I apologize for everybody who currently has like spreadsheets put together and all that. We're gonna we're gonna look at some stuff that changes some things. Actually, I have an article written up on some of the mechanics that we're going to talk about. I'm going to drop that in the chat here. And then if somebody wants to hit that on Twitch. So what we're going to be talking about today is how fast moves really work when you get entered, and how you can play around all this stuff and get an advantage out of certain situations. And I think this would be a good segue to...
Sorry, Kakuna, where did you drop the link?
Oh, sorry. Let me... Here, I'll put it here.
Okay, I can post that for you if you just want to keep talking.
You bet. So I think this would be a good segue of... there was some really rigorous research that went into all of this. And that part wasn't a one-man job. I had some serious help from two people, Garrett K. and FlarkeFiasco. Flark is with us on the stream here. And those two... Hey, Flark. And those two really, really helped me dig into some of these, bring some of the deeper stuff to my attention, and solve some really tough problems that we're going to talk about in a little bit here.
Yeah, Garrett, his Reddit article, some of you have probably read it, and it goes into a lot of the stuff. As soon as I saw it, I was like, oh, this is exactly where I am at too, with the game and my understanding. So then I messaged Matt, or I messaged KakunaMattata, and then he was like, have you talked to this guy? And then, yeah, the three of us just kind of became the musketeers that got this whole thing figured out. So yeah, it's really enlightening. We're gonna bust off some big strategies for you guys.
Alrighty, so to start off, I've got a test partner here, AlphaFeeb. We're gonna jump into a match here. We'll do Hypno versus Lapras first.
And why Hypno versus Lapras? How'd you pick those two?
Yeah, so what we want to look at is moves with different durations. Confusion is a really long move. Water Gun is a very fast move, and we'll be able to see some key differences here very easily.
I think I know where you're going with this, and could I explain a little bit about why it's important?
Absolutely, go for it. You're gonna,
as you're playing. So the main part about how Pokemon Go works is when you click your screen once, nothing happens. There's an animation, but no damage goes through, no energy is assigned. The game actually needs something else. It needs another input later. It depends on how much later, depending on your cooldown of your move, and then you will get credit for that. So a lot of times the game is just playing catch up. And so especially with Hypno right here, you're gonna see, I don't know how many of you have had like confusion just cycling out, and okay, I'm gonna have my move soon, and then there you are doing another confusion. 3 years later, you actually get your charge move. So what happens when they're asynchronous, like a 3-turn move and a 4-turn move, is they start lining up at weird times, and they will overlap. So certain times the 3-turn move is going to credit the 4-turn move earlier than you would expect. If it was just Hypno versus Hypno, you wouldn't get it that early. So yeah, go ahead and explain what's going on in this one.
Yeah, so to start off, I am just going to do one fast attack with Hypno. We're just going to use Confusion once and see what happens. And the answer is absolutely nothing. So what the heck is happening here? There is currently a 1 Confusion floating around in space. And we could sit here forever, and it will never happen. So how does it happen? Go ahead, AlphaFeeb, and use 1 water gun.
All right, it's happening now.
All right, so I have done nothing here for Hypno. AlphaFeeb just attacked, and that attack is what causes that confusion to trigger. And that is kind of the high-level summary of attacks don't actually hit when they're used. There's a very specific and noble amount of time. There's a pattern to it before it hits. And thankfully, there are some pretty hard rules that we now know of how to predict that, and fortunately, how to simulate that.
That was a painstaking testing process.
Yeah, oh yeah, and we can get into that a bit more while we demonstrate here. And this is all stuff that maybe some of you have felt before, or feel like, oh, something was really weird in this match. These mechanics are really kind of at the heart of a lot of those weird feelings. And understanding them is going to be big for how to approach matches. So we're just going to continue here. So in 3, 2, 1, AlphaFeeb, we're just going to keep attacking.
Do you want to just demonstrate it again to see that it's reproducible?
Sure, yeah. So if I attack here, nothing happens.
Then I will attack in 3,
you wanna
2, 1.
Yep, and then there's the hit. And we're just going to keep going here. And what you'll see is confusion is going to register for every 4 water guns.
Well, not.
Is it? I think it's 4, right?
Yeah. Yes,
it's on the 4th water gun.
Yes.
So I'll so everyone is kind of aware. Well, not everyone, but most people are aware about how many turns a move is. Water gun 1 turn, counter 2 turns. You've got infestation is 3, confusion is 4, and so what they could actually do here in this match, you guys could probably jump in another one. I don't know if you've planned this one in particular, but you could throw if you throw a confusion and then shoot 3 dragon breaths or 3 water guns, and then stop, the confusion still won't be credited because it's not allowed to. So if the confusion cooldown is 4 turns, then on the beginning of the 4th turn, so not turn 5. Turn 5 is when you can do it again. Turn 4 is when you're still in cooldown, but when the game allows your move to potentially do damage. And it all depends on, did someone else do something on turn 4? And if the answer is no, then you don't get your credit. But if somebody used a 3-turn move like Ice Shard, then on turn 4 they're going to be casting Ice Shard again, which is exactly when your confusion would go off.
Yeah. And, so.
Good visualizations.
Yeah, we'll dive into some graphics here about how to make sense of all this, how this all. So up here we've just got some representations of different moves with different turns. Some moves like water gun last 1 turn. Some moves like counter last 2 turns. And this is all stuff you guys know already. So counter's going to be happening twice as slow as water gun. Confusion is going to be happening twice as slow as counter. All that stuff. Now the fundamental rule of how fast moves register is 1, enough turns have to have passed, and 2, somebody has to be doing something on that turn. Like you saw in the demonstration, if we just sit there, nothing's going to happen. Moves only register when there's an action taken by one of the other players. So in this example...
Well, to clarify real quick, moves only happen when either player does something. I noticed some people in the chat saying, well, if I don't use a 4th water gun, do I just dodge the confusion? No, because the Hypno is just going to attack you again in a real battle. And as soon as he attacks on the turn 5, he's going to get credit for his first confusion. But that's slightly... what that does, though, is it locks him into another confusion. And so he has to wait and another 4 more. So on turn 9, he could charge move instead of turn 5. So...
Right, yeah. So these attacks, they're just kind of, we'll call them unregistered attacks. They're just kind of floating around, waiting to be registered. They will hit eventually. And there usually isn't a way to make them disappear. But I think we know one method of making someone drop fast moves, right?
Well, yes.
Maybe.
Yeah, it's pretty notable now. So that was piggybacking is the answer. Spoiler alert there. And I regret coming up with the move with that, or I regret coming up with the term with that many syllables, but I think it's here to stay. Jimma Banks, shout outs to him. He released a really good video on it recently. He got most everything right, but there is some mechanical things in there that are super nuanced about, like, it's not always consistent. We want to hear today, what we want to do is tell you it is consistent, and the new simulator is going to allow you to see just how to make it consistent. It's going to play out identical to the simulation now because of this. So yeah, shout outs to Jimma for covering that, and honestly to Matt for getting it all to work. That was pretty impressive. So yeah, and just real quick, you can lose your fast move if you die to a charge move beforehand. Like if Hypno throws confusion and then just dies to a charge move, the confusion never hits. His confusion gets lost. He wasn't alive to do it, essentially. But that's fringe. That's edge case. We're talking about what happens all the time. So piggybacking can happen all the time. And I don't know if you have a good table for it, like a good visualization for it, but it's a huge part of the game. So remember when Hypno threw a confusion and it wasn't credited yet, right? It was floating. As long as Hypno's move is floating, you can piggyback him, because that's essentially why it does or it doesn't work, is because he's not all caught up yet. However, if Hypno is caught up, then it doesn't matter. Then you can't piggyback him. Like, he will throw another fast move when you try and do it. And then you're going to go, that's weird, I didn't do it right, or I didn't click the button right. No, you did everything right. you probably did. The game just doesn't allow it at that point. So you have to choose to do charge moves in a different spot if you want that to work. And the sandbox mode is going to help you figure that out.
Yeah.
For sure.
And yeah, we'll dive into some sandbox stuff in a bit here. But for now, we're gonna take a look at some registration examples.
So can I jump in with a quick question?
Absolutely.
So you were saying that the edge case was if you die to a charge move, then your fast move wouldn't register.
Correct.
What if you die to a fast move?
Oh,
would it still register?
Yeah, it still will. Anything queued up. Well, no. So, like, if you throw a fast move and then die to I don't know, counter or something like that, and you throw like a confusion, I don't believe the confusion hits. I think it gets lost because you're dead before it works. Basically, you have to be. So the window of when a move can do damage is X -1. That's so whatever the cooldown is. If it's 4 turns, then on the next time you could cast it is on turn 5, but on turn 4 is when it can do damage. For Ice Shard, I guess X-1 doesn't make sense. Just go with X. So if it's a 4-turn move, then on turn 4 it can do damage. On turn 5 you can do another one. If it's a 3-turn move like Air Slash, then on turn 4 you could do it. Like you could cast it again, but on turn 3 it could do damage. It could potentially do it. And if you use that article Matt's referencing here, you can see that you have to meet both the criteria. You have to be a certain amount of time. Number 1 has to pass since the fast move was used. That basically just comes down to how long is the cooldown of the move. And then on the turn right before you're able to perform another action, if somebody does an action there, if somebody else does something, it could be switching. Switching can update the game. Casting another fast move, casting a charge move, all of them can technically update the game.
Yeah, there's actually supposed to be a table here of how long moves are supposed to register, but someone forgot to put it in. I'll do that after the stream here. But let's dive into some examples of move registration, so we all understand how this works, and then we can get to some more advanced stuff like piggybacking and some other tactics. So
yeah, this is going to be what you're seeing on the site. So this is really good for operating the site correctly.
And yeah, this is what the timelines are going to look like. So circles are when you use an attack, and squares are when the attack hit. So for example, like we saw in the demonstration, the first attack does nothing. Prepares an attack to be registered, but it's just floating out there. It hasn't hit yet. So in our next example, when we say, if we took 2 Toxicroaks and put them against each other, the damage and energy would register like this. You use an attack. When the next attack happens, it registers the previous attack and readies a new attack. And that just kind of keeps going as the battle plays out. And this is very straightforward. It happens at even increments. It looks like a normal battle. You might not even know anything was wrong without taking a deeper look. But why don't we dive into a demonstration AlphaFeeb of Toxicroak versus Toxicroak?
Do you want to go into that?
Yeah. So pop quiz for the chat. How many counters does it take to get to a mud bomb? How many counters does it take to get to a mud bomb?
Stream's probably on a delay, so I don't know if you'll see the answers.
We'll see, yeah.
I don't think anybody signed up for a pop quiz. Like you're hitting them off guard here.
All right, so we've got 4 right.
I could have even set up a poll actually if I knew you guys were gonna do a pop quiz like this.
We don't even. The pop quiz is even a pop for us. Nobody saw it coming.
It's just popping.
See, I don't even know. Okay, so it is apparently 6 counters.
And that's 8 for Sludge Bomb.
6 counters to a mud bomb. So we're going to do Toxicroak versus Toxicroak. And we're going to see, does it actually take 6 counters to get to a mud bomb? Do you need me to send you a new challenge?
I'm still on the old one, but...
Okay. Yeah, I am too. So we're just going to attack each other here.
We can't see it.
Go for mud bomb. I'll get you in just a second. There we go.
Beautiful.
All right, so we're just going to attack here. Go for mud bomb and see how many it takes.
Yep, so I'm going to be spamming, clicking on where mud bomb is on my charge move deck.
And chat will try to keep track of all the attack animations as well.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. What's that all about? So what's happening here? Oop, there goes my... Oh, I lived!
Wow, you're
Ooh.
a god. That one ring mud bomb.
Right? Barely had strength to fight
That's a
back.
clear example of how your first move is delayed on its registration, and after your sixth counter that you needed was not credited until you performed the 7th one. If you actually saw his Toxic Croak afterwards, he had one counter registered, right? So you fired the mud bomb, and then you actually had the energy from that 7th counter sitting around,
Right.
ready to go, ready to ramp up again.
So let's dive into an example here. I did that on the wrong site. We're just going to look in Sandbox and see.
Is this the new one? The new website?
Yes, this is the new one. So if we go into Sandbox mode here, it'll show me where all our taps are. So we can see it takes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 mud bombs. So how that works is our first one does nothing, and then each attack after that is just catching up to the previous. And we don't get enough energy for a mud bomb until our 7th attack. So that is an explanation for why. We'll get into this one later, but like for anybody who used Gallade in regionals or championships, even if it felt like it took more than 3 confusions to get to a Leaf Blade, this is why. Because energy does not register when immediately, and you may not get enough energy to perform your charge move when you think you should.
And this is exactly why he's sorry for everyone that's done so much hard work on all the spreadsheets, exporting all the data, manually going over it. Yeah, we're really sorry.
So this
changes a lot of things.
Yeah, it's a whole nother thing to consider when looking at matchups. So the reason is, and the reason for over tapping really, is you might see your energy come through, but you don't actually have enough yet. So it makes you do another fast move.
Well, it doesn't make you do another fast move. Most people are just pressing the screen, and you do end up doing one.
Yeah, there's
a way around that.
There is a way around that. There is a way around.
You can. Some of you may have noticed that sometimes if you are courteous and you allow your other opponent to tap, and you wait a little bit, you can actually get your move off earlier, and that is a thing. It's not. You're not crazy. It does work. It works really well, and they'll be showcasing that in some demonstrations here.
Yeah, why don't we
think of a new term for it? We do need to think of a new term for it, and it's not going to have anything to do with pigs. I think is good. So that'll be we could chat source that one.
If we can somehow name it with camera up in it, that would be perfect. All right.
All right. So AlphaFeeb, why don't we do our Jirachi versus Jirachi test? We're going to use confusion and style.
You guys are flexing hard on this.
You guys can see in slow motion what's going on. So we'll do normally first. We'll just charge up to Doom Desire, and normally it would take 4 confusions to get to Doom Desire. But with the power of science, watch it take 5. So
this will just be another
1,
proof of concept here.
2, 3, 4.
Wait, are you the guy from Sesame Street?
Yes, I am the Count. Man, the Count would be so good at PvP. He'd just be a monster at like.
What was this about Sesame Street?
The Count. He counts things and makes songs.
All right, so it
Great.
took 5 confusions to get to Doom Desire, right? But what if there was a way we could actually make it 4?
Let's do it.
So I'll back out here and resend.
Hit him with the clickbait question.
Yes. Is there a way? Can we do it? Do we have the
Sure.
technology?
You won't believe what happens after 4 confusions.
Matthew, let me
Yes.
lock in first so that you have charge move priority.
Great.
What Go Stadium doesn't want you to know. Tonight, live.
No, we're putting
Well,
it
that's
out
what
there,
we're all
guys.
here for.
We're putting it out, guys, out there.
How could
Alright.
you?
Secrets uncovered.
I've locked in my team.
Alrighty.
Let's see this.
How did the pyramids get built?
So I'm going to
Alrighty,
be
so what
spam
I'm
clipping.
Yeah, so AlphaFeeb is just going to spam confusions, and I am going to do something a little different. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm just going to wait. And there it is. So what just
And-
happened there?
Yeah. That right there that you witnessed is
Cheating.
as far as it is, it's waiting of some kind. It doesn't have a cool name, but that is a guaranteed way. No matter who had charge move priority there, Matt was going to get that off first every time.
What about
it's
the
just
energy
100%
situation?
guaranteed.
We do have a question about it from Choose Master in chat saying
Yes,
that.
so
What about
very
the
good
energy?
point. I am now down 1 fast move.
Oh.
Yes.
So this has some specific tactical applications.
So the game's depth is showing here, something we didn't even know about.
Yeah, so we are down 1 fast move. So this would be used in like an end of game mirror match or something of that nature, where you need to get to a charge move first, or you lose.
Yeah.
And-
Have you guys ever felt like, oh man, I'm really worried that they're gonna hit the charge move soon. Like this Skarmory almost has another sky attack, but like I also almost have close combat on Gallade, and
So-
we both don't have shields. Like
Yeah,
this is that situation.
that's pretty cool. So there's one question I do want to ask though. So there's a little bit difference between what's happening here than overtapping. Am I right? This is you're waiting for your opponent to activate their fast move before
Correct.
you jump into smashing your charge attack.
Yes.
But overtapping is that something else?
Overtapping is a standard way to play the game. I guess is really because I mean. The way that we were looking, right, you can see that the tapping and the energy is always delayed. So you're basically always over tapping all the time,
I see.
but it's not, it doesn't really present itself as a problem. Okay, so the best way to explain how frustrating this is, or like where you should be using this stopping tactic or waiting tactic, is just think about when you're at the very end of the game and you go, I had it! I had it was right there, look at my screen! And people go, oh, that sucks. That never happens if you wait. I've been doing this tactic for about a month or so. I saw like a random comment on a YouTube video and like King's video or something like, hey, you could have charge moved if you waited. And I was like, what? Is that true? I tried it and it worked. I didn't know why. We know why now, but it does work. And I don't get frustrated like that anymore. I always get my charge move. Or I die way before it. Like before it was ever close. So
is it accurate to display it as the opposite of overtapping? Because if it is, we can just call this method undertapping. But if it's something completely different, then we do not want a name that is misrepresenting what it actually is.
yeah.
Undertapping sounds nice.
Ooh.
Well, yeah. I like
But
that.
is it the opposite though?
Well-
It's really all it is it's so you're playing the game straight until usually the end of a match, or basically when you think I want to be absolutely sure that I launch my move as soon as possible, and I don't care if I lose a fast move because of it. That usually applies at the end of the game. So all you're really doing is waiting. You're choosing not to take any input. Now, I will say, y'all, that now that we blew the lid off this thing, you're going to have some weird games. Some of my friends do this, and here's what happens. I wait because I need my move. My friend waits because my friend needs his move. We actually both just stare at each other like a Mexican standoff, waiting for the other person to press a button so that we can get energy. And as far as I can tell, that's actually when the time up rules come into play, where if you have more Pokemon or more health, then the game declares you the winner. So if you have more health, and you're like, no, after you. And they're like, after you. And you're like, well, I can sit here and just win from a timeout. So, like, you lose either way.
So we finally put a chess clock in Pokemon Go PvP.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that's was gonna be one of my questions is if you would have that scenario with if two people understood the mechanics that in depth. But my second question would be is this sort of the inverse of what we saw in the Lucario head-to-head in Kingdom, where you want to be the one that doesn't hit their charge move, because if you hit the charge move, then that extra counter is that sort of similar?
What do you mean by extra counter?
Oh, so like if the other opponent shields your say power up punch,
right? You burn the shield to like win the head-to-head, basically.
Right,
because in that matchup, you're not doing a charge move, and you're getting a counter on the turn that they're getting a charge move.
Oh, I think I see what you guys mean. So, are you saying like when everyone is on critical HP, and you can either do a charge move, or you can do just a counter and kill them with counter?
Right, so in Kingdom, in a Lucario mirror, if, let's say, it was in the lead, and you both go and your opponent uses a power-up punch, if you were to shield that and not use any charge move, you would end up winning the battle just based off of counters. Because they're doing one power-up punch that's shielded, but as a result, you're getting an additional counter that's fainting them a turn early.
Right, because like if you shield, you take 1 damage, but if you don't throw a charge move, they can't shield it, and they take whatever ridiculous amount of damage Lucario's putting out. So yeah, that isn't quite the same here. That does factor in. That's an advanced strategy you can do where if somebody has, like, if you're if you're like either gonna kill somebody with a Razor Leaf before you die or a Leaf Blade and they have shields, don't throw a Leaf Blade. You're just gonna die. You just throw the Razor Leaf and then they die instead. So it's different. It's bypassing shields by opting out of charge moves, because when you choose to take an action, you can choose to do a fast move or a charge move, and one of those things can be reduced to 1 damage and one can't through a shield.
Right.
So it's slightly different. This is more like really I want to encourage you guys again. I know it's like pretty advanced and it will be put into this sandbox. There's a way to throw the waiting command in there, but I want to encourage you to think about it really at the end of the game. If you look at your screen and it says your charge move was ready and you died, that's where you could have done it. That's where you should be doing it. Like 99% of the time. You can find the edge cases later, but that's the rule, and there might be some exceptions later to the tactic.
I don't know the exact terms, but it feels like there are sort of 3 things we're talking about in play, like 3 sort of advanced strategies. You have the sort of stealing a fast move, which is, I think, best highlighted in that Lucario example, because you're not really piggybacking, right? Because you're not using the charge move to block their fast move. You're just stealing a fast move. Then
you're not stealing a fast move. You're just opting to use a fast move on the turn that they're using a charge.
Right.
Yeah.
But the fast move isn't shielded, whereas you can shield the charge.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
It's not really. Yeah, I think
You're
all these
a different
terms.
Action is really it. You're just one person's choosing A, the other person's choosing B.
Right.
And in this case, A is actually better than B. Who knew?
Exactly, because it can't be shielded.
Right.
Right.
So that's one thing.
And then
piggybacking.
Piggybacking.
Yeah, and then there's
Would-
this waiting thing as well,
Right.
and all three of them can give you advantages. And all three of them are going to be in the new PvPoke website, and you can play around with it more. I
So
think,
in the
Matt,
process of
you
trying
probably want
to
showcase that, right?
in the process of
Yeah,
trying to master the simulation, you guys, kind of open a whole new strategy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you were
Yeah,
saying?
We
let
had
me
to.
show how this works in Sandbox quick, or how it will work. So here we have our Jirachi versus Jirachi. And as we can see, it's going to take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 before either of us can launch Doom Desire. And that's if we're both just tapping at normal pace. However, if I decide to wait a turn, don't do anything. When my opponent makes their 5th attack, I get the energy for my Doom Desire, and I can use it before they do. And that is, in essence, the strategy behind waiting, of preventing yourself from doing an extra fast move, and waiting to allow your opponent to give you the energy that you're supposed to have at that time, and then you are free to use whichever charge moves you want.
And you can even see here, you guys see right after the Doom Desire, there's 2 little circles. One of them has a box, one of them does not have a box. That's because one person chose to give up a fast move in order to do their charge move earlier. They guaranteed that charge move, but they lost one fast move. So it's usually not worth it to do early on, but if you want to just plug in, yeah, you can see are they caught up at that point?
Let's see. Oh, you know what? There's piggybacking here.
Yep.
Is there? Yeah. Okay. So.
Yeah. So unfortunately, what that actually does, guys, is you're waiting, right? So you're not doing a fast move when somebody else is. You're guaranteeing the charge move earlier, though. Then the opponent gets to do their charge move if it's a mirror match. So Jirachi does Doom Desire after you do Doom Desire, so the second one, which is immediately after, which is piggybacking, and then you lose another move. So you might actually be like 2 moves behind. I'm not sure if it works like that, or if it's just 1 move behind.
If they're tapping at normal pace, you would actually get your Doom Desire on the same turn as theirs, but afterward we can go into how that works a little bit more. But yeah, doing the waiting technique would put you typically 1 fast move behind. So it's something you're gonna want to save for late game, or in a mirror match scenario where you could wait and force your opponent to make a decision of whether they want to burn an extra shield or take the loss. Or
could you showcase that real quick? Can you load up something that's less
Tanky,
esoteric,
sure.
like Jirachi? Can we do Toxicroak?
Yep.
Just do straight mud bombs with 2 shields, and then do a wait at the end, and then we can probably allow people to just go ahead and maybe screenshot that for reference, so that when they play around with the simulator later, they can see, oh, this is kind of where waiting should be done, and how the energy delays work.
Oh, sure.
Sandbox.
Yeah. Actually, we'll do 1 shield, because this is one AlphaFeeb and I played out, and the 2 shield is really close, depending on breakpoints and stuff. So we'll do 1 shield. So like in this scenario, let's say you have no shields at this point and you're going for the KO. It could be at this point it's up to CMP. But if one of us decides to wait, then their attack registers our energy and we get first dibs.
Dead.
So that's kind of the scenario where you would
win there by, like, what's Toxicroak winning there by? The enemy is frustrated because if you look up there, you see how it says mud bomb is full. That's you getting frustrated. And then on the left, that's me who killed you because I waited. So we all can do this now. We all have this knowledge to do this, and we can all frustrate the other person or potentially just join in a nice little Mexican standoff. So that's cool.
And this scenario is especially
Yeah.
important. This scenario is especially important when you don't have charge move priority, because if neither of you go into this, you would normally lose. Whereas if you were playing the delay and wait game, now you have your charge move go off first before theirs, which is the opposite of what would happen normally.
Right. So this is one way to make CMP, charge move priority, less relevant. And then, of course, piggybacking has been around for about a month or a month and a half or so, and people also know that that's another way to subvert that. So we now have 2 ways to do that, and you can actually do both of them in the same game if you want. There's really no holds barred with these strategies. You can combine all of them and gain huge advantages against people that don't know them. And you can use the simulator to really help clean up exactly how much you want to squeeze out of a matchup. How much energy can you get out of your opponent in a mirror match?
Yeah, it's something that might be a little tricky to replicate in game, but with some practice, I think we'll see really top players kind of who are probably doing some of this already really take off and run with it. And so going back to some other examples, so we saw in our demonstrations 2 Pokemon with the same move, but let's look at some examples where they're a little different. So if you have a 2-turn move versus a 4-turn move, for example, nothing happens on the first one, of course. But then if we're counter and confusion here, let's say, we're going to get counter in between the confusion, and that works kind of similar to how you would expect. But because things are falling on the same turns, this is where you might accidentally overtap if you're not careful, because you're not getting your energy until you have to attack. So this is a situation where waiting would be useful. If we look at a 1-turn move versus a 3-turn move, this is actually really nice to see where the soonest moment that energy can register. So here we have Water Gun just going and going and going. And one thing we should mention is that 1-turn moves, they hit immediately, you get the energy immediately. You can't overtap with a 1-turn move for the most part, in theory.
You can't piggyback a 1-turn. Anyone with a 1-turn move, piggybacking isn't even possible. As soon as anyone's using a 1-turn move, the game is updating every single turn. The reason piggybacking works is because you're exploiting the game being behind. You're exploiting the game not being updated. So those water guns or whatever are constantly refreshing the game.
Yeah, and here it's easy to see if we're using a 3-turn move like Air Slash, for example. It's going to register 1 turn before I can act. And this has some benefits, for example. In this scenario, it will be pretty difficult to overtap because you're getting your energy as soon as you can get. You're not dependent on your own attacks to register your own energy. And on the flip side, though, 1-turn moves have a pretty tangible advantage in some ways because you're not subjected to all the wonkiness of this move registration stuff.
Yeah, in fact, if you want to just make a team of 6, all with 1-turn moves, congratulations, you don't need to learn anything more about waiting or piggybacking. It doesn't work. So there you go. You've just nullified all of that completely. So that's noob mode. That's what we call noob mode as of right now.
I did see a very interesting post on Silpharina on the subreddit of like Dialga mirrors, and the game still has problems registering one-turn move, like there's still something funky going on there that we don't have the answers to quite yet. There's actually there's still some things we don't have all the answers to yet, but I think hopefully all this stuff provides a lot of answers for things that before we were just kind of wondering, well, why the heck did that happen?
That's so interesting.
I think a good thing to say right now before we forget is, y'all out there listening to this, what we're saying is that the new PvPoke website should function very, very similar. If you're just both playing it straight, just tapping, no piggybacking, nothing, you're just playing it out, it's gonna basically work like the simulation. You're not gonna come into things where you're like, oh, well, it's just a weird simulator. Of course, it's not accurate, but it's close. It's better than nothing. That's what we told ourselves before. But now it's gonna be really good. Like 99% of the time, it won't be weird. It won't be different. It'll play it out. But if you have video evidence of anything acting strangely, and you go into the simulator and you can't make it line up with the video, yeah, hit us up. We're good at figuring that out. And we're good at making those changes. Matt's incredibly fast at getting those things in. So we do want to hear, now more than ever, if anything is different.
That's
because
a good
before
point.
we'd be like, it's always different. Like, yeah, big whoop. It's different a lot.
So,
but now it's very rare.
So yeah, that's a good point. But since we're at this, how, if people have information on differences, how should they contact you? What is the best way? Do we try to tag you on Twitter? Do we want to, send you DMs in Discord? Go ahead. What's the best way to reach you if we have, some kind of inaccuracies that people find?
Do we want to make a Go Stadium channel for that? Like a separate channel to just drop anything in that, everyone has access to and can just post freely in there?
Well, that's definitely a good point, and we appreciate you bringing it up. I'll definitely talk to Scotty and the other mods to see if we can set that up. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We definitely love working with you guys, by the way. So this is great.
Likewise.
Yes.
Well, we already have the PvPoke channel on Go Stadium.
Yeah. There's already.
So why don't we just use that one?
Oh yeah,
Sure.
That's true. Thanks for reminding about that, Tristan.
Yeah.
For those of you not familiar, we have a PvP tools category on the Go Stadium Discord, and so we have the Rank Checker bot has a channel, and then we have a channel for PokeBattler, PvPoke, and Pagonium. So those are definitely some tools you should check out. And like we said, if you see any discrepancies, go to the PvPoke channel, leave it there. And maybe tag Kakuna as well.
Right, and the devs are normally watching those channels. So
Cool.
What is the next part of your demonstration right now?
Yeah. So you might be wondering, this is all great, PvPoke, but how do you know it's right? Well, we did some really heavy video analysis, and I've got some examples in this article. Lining up simulations with the actual battles. So we're just going to take a peek here, and hopefully that's going to make things make a lot more sense. So in this example,
Kakuna, do you want to like maximize it? Yeah.
Because the simulation is at the bottom and it's covered up by the time bar.
There we go. Theater mode should be good.
Right. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah.
It should go away when I start playing. But here we have a Drapion versus Xatu. They both have a 3-turn duration. So this is going to play out very similarly to like up here when we have 2 moves with the same duration. Energy is going to register from the previous move, and it's going to be all even. So we're just going to hit play here and see how this plays out. So on the bottom, we have the PvPoke simulation. Up top is the actual battle. And just look very carefully at both of them. And
You did a really good job with this.
Oh, thanks. If you didn't know, you can run the timeline simulations in real time. And if you didn't know that before, that's a good thing because they weren't right before, but now they're more right. So.
And if you
That's
can't
really
see
what
the
today's
video
all
very
about.
clearly, yes, seeing you guys make such clean updates, you know, like the question earlier, right? Could we eventually just have a full simulation of the game outside of the game, right? But basically, if you guys can't see the video very clearly from the stream right now, the article, we did post it, and we'll definitely attach it to the description of the videos, so you can definitely go and watch the videos and see for yourselves how this matches up with the simulations.
We could pin
Yeah,
that
and-
in the
and-
Go Stadium PvPoke channel.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah. There's just 2 other ones. They're pretty short.
Yes, but we'll watch the showcase here. Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So here we have Hypno versus Venusaur. Confusion is twice as long as Vine Whip. So what we're going to see is Hypno's energy is going to be it's going to be getting it half as quickly as Venusaur, and they're going to happen in step with one another.
Hey, Matt, do you think you
so,
could full screen it?
Maybe.
It
that
might
work?
crop off. It might crop off because of how we. Yeah, let's just drag that a little bigger. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Does that work a little better?
You're okay.
Um,
You can keep going a little more. The reason why we cannot do the full screen is because I have Kakuna's screen share cropped only to part of his.
Okay, I see.
So if we full screen it, the video might be cropped. But
Got it.
Okay, so I'll just let this play here, and you can just kind of compare the simulation, that like energy in the simulation and energy in the real battle, and they should line pretty well. So here we've got a frenzy plant.
Actually, Matt, is this an example of Venusaur using a move before Confusion's all the way done? Because that's another thing.
It is, and that's something to discuss. I think when energy, there's a really weird set of circumstances of when energy registers around charge.
Oh,
and
I think I was talking about something different.
Oh, okay.
So if you play that again, real
Yeah.
quick. So we're gonna look down at the timeline there. So notice that at the same time, if you can kind of pause it here, right here, when the frenzy plant's going off. So Hypno is like halfway through the confusion. Like he wasn't fully through the confusion, he was halfway through. And then the frenzy plant came out. Where does the rest of the confusion go? Well, his animation, he doesn't have to carry it out, right? Like normally there's 2 vine whips per confusion, right? Well, there was 1 vine whip, there was kind of 0 vine whips, more or less, because the Venusaur shows for, it basically gets to do 2 actions per confusion. Action number 1, it could have vine whipped, and then action number 2, it could have frenzy planted. But you know what? It frenzy planted right away. So you actually just lost the whole vine whip there. Because, and you'd actually see this with Lapras versus Bastiodon back in Kingdom Cup. There was some astute observations where when you're water gunning, so you actually get your surf right away, but you should do a couple of water guns before you surf, because Bastiodon's going to do that smackdown regardless. So you might as well throw a couple water guns in and then throw the surf. He's still not getting another smackdown. He's getting the same amount of smackdowns regardless. You're just getting a couple extra moves in, because that whole animation cools down. Like Hypno's going to bring his arm back and reset. Like he's got the big pimp slap, but then he's going to pull it back and he's going to be like, he's going to reset at the end of this. And then you'll see down in the simulation, he gets credit for that. He gets full credit for his confusion, even though he went to Goodwill and paid 50% for it. So, yeah, that's another thing that impacts gameplay. And you can see that in the simulation as well. Lots of little strategies. Who knew? I don't think Niantic knew. I think they just accidentally made a good game.
Well, the turn system makes for a lot of open interpretation, but how they coded it for, you know, when things take place, they must have had discussions on where,
Yeah,
you know, where to give credit
so-
and so on. So
Yeah.
not sure if
This
it's
is a-
accidental completely, but
Um,
it's a lot more depth than when you first look at the game, for sure.
for sure.
You gonna
And
blow the lid off on this one?
oh, yeah,
This is
this
the
one's
weird one.
crazy. Okay, so
Do you
I
actually
was
wanna
gonna
pull up
mention
the old sim? Can we do that?
we can do that.
Because
Absolutely,
it lies.
it does lie.
It lies a lot. So this is why old simulations are going to be a little weird, old data from that, and why you might have been really confused playing matchups, especially like this one. This is a really common one in Nightmare, Raichu versus Drapion. And if I believe, let's see it. I think this is going to say that Raichu gets Wild Charge first. I believe it's going to say that.
Let me do the one shield here. Yep.
Yes. Wild Charge first. Woo, man, that was back in 2019. We were wrong about that. Okay, so
So this is the old simulation.
yeah, where it
where-
says you tie at the end. That's cute. Okay, that so yeah, let's switch over to the new one. And you could follow along at home if you want. You could pull up a tab and, you know, check it out and then look here at this video and look down at the bottom there. When you see that simulation at the bottom, that's nowhere near what you're looking at on the old PvPoke website. Wild Charge is supposed to be first. Why is Crunch first? Well, it's because energy gets credited in weird ways. Raichu is accidentally giving Drapion credit for his move and catching Drapion up to speed in the game, right? So the game is actually updating Drapion before it updates Raichu for that Wild Charge. It normally becomes very close, but in actuality, Drapion gets that first one.
And another thing to look at is, so in the original sim, you know, attacks happen very evenly. So this is every 2 turns, this is every 3 turns. Okay, that makes sense. But in this new world of energy registering in weird ways, look at how Raichu's sparks register. It's in a very like staggered pattern. And that's because we are looking at a 2-turn move and a 3-turn move interact with one another. And they switch off between. Yeah, this is really bizarre, and I think you're gonna have to see it in action to really kind of to make it click. So I'm just gonna run this here. Pay very close attention to Raichu's energy in the sim and in game. So you see how it kind of jumps up, and then of course Drapion gets Crunch first because of how these interactions play out. Raichu uses Wild Charge.
What's nifty is Raichu actually threw a spark while Drapion was Wild Charging, and then Drapion took the game into Crunch, but then Raichu was actually able to jump into a Wild Charge without zooming back out. The game kind of lets you buffer that. It's pretty weird.
Yeah, and I'll play this one again because you know, how Raichu gains energy is very weird and not at a steady rate. I'll rewind a little bit there.
Watch his Thunder Punch bar.
So you see how because of how these fall together, Raichu's energy gain happens either on even or odd turns.
And that's all because Drapion has a 3-turn move, Raichu has a 2-turn move, so they're asynchronous. It's like It's like a weird drum beat or something. You know, it's a weird musical dance they're doing.
This is some like galaxy brain stuff right here, guys.
Yeah, you're gonna want to. A lot of people aren't gonna want to get this deep into it, but just be aware that if your moves are on different amounts of turns, weird things will happen. The sims will reflect it accurately now, though, so you don't have to care. But it is. It is certainly there.
I do want to clarify, when you say weird, you make it sound as if it's something unintentional or you can't quantify. But weird, as in it's still consistent in a way that we can, take into account of and predict what's actually happening. So
for sure,
it's pretty
and
interesting.
There was some discussion about when Garrett made his post. Maybe this is all like some weird server sync glitch or something weird's happening. But when we took a closer look, there's really something mechanical going on here. And
very predictable. Yeah, it's consistent to the point where we felt confident and comfortable putting it into a simulator, and we felt like if y'all want to push buttons and have it, give you a certain result, or if you want to go into sandbox and move things around and choose whatever you want, right? You can, and that's how it's going to work. That just is how it's going to work. But if you didn't fully know that these theories were going on, these mechanical justifications, then it does really appear pretty random. It really feels off. It feels weird. But yeah, that's because it is. It is a little off kilter. It's supposed to be.
That's pretty cool. And you, in the article that we have listed over there, you've explained all these concepts as well in detail. And is that right?
Yes,
cool.
And it's mostly it's a pretty high level overview of the.
No, I think that's exactly
that's
exactly how we hope. If we were to click on that article and try to get a depth, deeper understanding, that it's all there. So I think it's probably it's a great call from you guys to go high level and deep in that article.
It's really it's a primer for using the new websites, updates, and features, and understanding why is PvPoke so weird. And the answer is, well, because the game
is weird.
Yeah. And then if you want a low level understanding, we're probably going to get that out on Reddit soon. Garrett, Kay, and myself and Matt are going to be working to really just get into the nuts and bolts, and for those that really want to super dive in.
That's perfect. So in terms of cool mechanics and updates to the PvPoke website, is there anything else that you guys want to show? Because my mind's already blown. I'm not sure how much mind-blowing I can take in one stream. But
sure.
What else do you
have
guys...
There's intravenous IVs, so you can actually just put Pokemon straight into your veins. That's...
Oh, I see. Wow.
I'm just picturing some of these hardcore counters like carrying metronomes now to sync up these different fast move combinations.
Fun fact, every turn is half a second.
Yes.
In game. It's about 0.5 seconds. Mm-hmm. And so if you get any song that's 120 beats per minute, shout out to Call Me Maybe, then you can, in fact, each beat will be 0.5 seconds.
So what you're saying is I shouldn't be doing casual chatting with my opponent. I should be listening to a music with the right tone and beats to keep with the game.
Yeah, just, hey, I just met you. Just play that in your head. You don't even need to play it out loud. You can hum it at tournaments, and people will just be like, that's the Call Me Maybe guy. And you're like, well, I'm winning.
Did you know that PvP is a rhythm game?
It's been disguised as some high level Pokemon strategy, but it's just
that's really the Go in Pokemon Go. It's DDR in PvP.
I did want to answer a question quick. Choose Master asked, so comparing the original Riot 2 Drapion's matchup to the in-game one, why does Drapion get crunch first? And the answer is when you have a 2-turn move and a 3-turn move interacting. So you know how we had to wait with Jirachi or Toxicroak or whatever, because those attacks were happening at the same time. Here, it's can happen naturally where, as you can see, before. So this is one turn before Drapion gets to go next. And what's happened here is Raichu is attacked and credited. It registered Drapion's last infestation. So going into this turn here,
let's go. Put your mouse on turn 1. So just put your mouse on. Sorry, on the turn 1 on that last turn.
Oh,
so to the left a little bit, and then right there. So that's basically turn 1 right there. Is both players clicked the button, okay, and then turn 2, they both can't click buttons. They can't do actions. They're on cooldown. And then turn 3, Raichu can in fact choose Spark. Interesting thing about Infestation is it's a 3-turn move, and the golden rule about when moves can be credited is however long the cooldown is on that turn, that's when you can get credit. So Raichu inadvertently on turn 3, that's the first turn that Infestation can get credited. Raichu inadvertently credited it. And so Raichu, however, didn't get credit for his own Spark. Nobody gave him credit for that until, as you can see there, Drapion fires the charge move. Then Raichu actually gets that Spark. You see the little black circle from Crunch? If you look straight up from that, that's Raichu's Spark right there. So Raichu is saying, here you go, you can crunch me. And then Drapion's like, here you go, I'm going to give you your Spark. So those in that sequence, the opponent is kind of doing everything for you.
They give you the energy, which was Raichu able to use the charge move before that? Okay, so it was. I see.
Yeah,
so it wasn't.
So Raichu moves here, and then it's on cooldown here. And
this is a great example to choose for this demonstration, by the way, guys.
Yeah, it was one of the.
Yeah, shout out to Garrett K. He brought this one to light and was like, this one is seriously wacky, and this one here was the most time we spent, and this one confirmed a lot of theories that we had floating around. Because
what we can see here is that Raichu did, because of the way turns work, it got an action, but it didn't have the energy for the wild charge until the crunch was activated. Yeah, so that's how.
Supposed to. It's like, you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you could be like, yeah, after 7 sparks, you're supposed to have wild charge. Yeah, that's true, but you need 7 sparks worth of credit. You need the game to credit you 7 sparks. You don't need to just do 7 of them.
Now I'm curious. Let's say if Drapion doesn't use the crunch there and used a fast move there.
Sure.
What kind of craziness happens there?
Yeah, then fast forwarding to, so this is where it could use crunch.
Right. It doesn't. It used the infestation.
It doesn't. Then Raichu would get to use wild charge first.
During that action. But what we're seeing here is that infestation hasn't been credited yet, has it? Oh, right. I guess you have to activate if you change the move for Raichu on the next one to wild charge, then it will get credited at that point. Am I right?
No,
it won't.
It won't because infestation. If we go back,
right.
Quick, you can see the credit is after wild charge. You see that little green box after wild charge down. That's where that got credited actually.
What?
That's right. Because only one turn has passed here. And infestation needs 2 turns to pass in order for it to register.
Wow.
Because on turn 1 you infest, on turn 2 you're on cooldown, and on turn 3, if somebody does something, you get your credit. But you got wild charged on turn 2. So nobody did anything on your turn 3. And so then, after wild charge is all said and done, you both decide to fast move, and
that's when you get the credit.
You clicking your own infestation, and Raichu clicking Spark would give you your previous infestation. Finally, it's like a really long time to get that.
Right, but wow.
Yeah, weird.
So what you're saying is Pokemon Go is not a real-time strategy game, but a turn-based game.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, not exactly like that, but there's
it's
a lot of
RTTBS. It's a real-time
It's
turn-based strategy.
real time and turn based at the same time. What?
Yeah.
I have to think about that a little more. But this is definitely some insightful stuff, and definitely appreciate you guys shedding the light on this. I don't know how much longer I want to keep you guys going, because we're hitting the 1.5 hour mark.
Yeah,
it's a
no
great
worries,
conversation, and I can keep going on and on. But in terms
I
of
honestly just hope that made sense, like, because it's a lot, and I know that not a lot of people are going to want to get that far into it. I mean, I know we're on the serious, Discord here for a reason, right? But at the same time, a lot of this, if it didn't make sense, that's okay, right? People aren't just going to beat you because you didn't get it, because the point is here, go to the simulator and treat it like gospel now. It's going to be really good. if it strangely
that's holding me to too much.
If it's if it strangely is inaccurate, please let us know. Tag us in the Discord channel. But for the most part, it won't be. It will be pretty accurate, and you can just use that. I'm
hoping that you guys have done all your homework right, and this is our actual lessons. But what I'm thinking is, after this video comes out, people can go back and rewatch and listen to your explanation over and over again, and try to understand exactly what what you guys are trying to show here, and then they might have more questions. So we're always happy to do more collaborations. Hopefully we'll get to do another one of these streams with the PvPoke guys again, to so that you guys can throw more questions out. Yeah, this is definitely a fun experiment and exercise on understanding the mechanics.
So remember, the big takeaways here are the site is new and shiny and awesome. Go check it out and definitely play around in Sandbox. And if something is weird in Sandbox and it doesn't make sense, sleep on it, wake up, try it again. It's just like a video game boss. You just have to try it again on another day. You'll get it eventually. And then as far as the strategic takeaways here, do play around with waiting. Both in your games and in the simulator. You're gonna see it makes a difference in the end game. Or under tapping, yeah. You know what? Let's just crowdsource the name. I'm
gonna try and push for under tapping, but you guys can try and make it waiting. Waiting just doesn't sound as cool, but
it is. It says wait in the website, so that's why I'm using that. It's at least consistent there.
But just like the term piggybacking, once the community comes, a consensus with a term, it will fly, and you can't change it at that point. So we'll see. We'll see what the community decides that the name is. But I really appreciate the summarizing of the big points of the stream today. And what you're saying is that the new update to the website is going to happen as soon as this stream ends. Is that right, or has it already gone live?
Yes, not live yet, but as soon as the stream is over, I'll push stuff up, and I'll tweet when it's
basically, for you guys here, 35 of you on Twitch, 13 of you guys on YouTube, and a lot of previous people who was joining beforehand, you guys are getting the first scoop onto the update and understand what actually happened or is going to happen to PvPoke at the end of tonight. And go play around with it and let us know what kind of how you're gonna break their simulation. I'm sure they want to see you break it. So.
Yes.
Yeah.
We dare you. That's a challenge.
So, is there any other big meaty stuff you guys want to cover, or is that coming close to the end of your main topics? What Kakuna, or
I think that covers the gist of it. We could talk about piggybacking, but I feel like if we started talking about piggybacking, we'd probably be here for another hour.
And maybe that'll be a topic for another stream. So, super appreciate Kakuna for coming on. Flark, who has, I'm sure, done a lot of research onto this topic. AlphaFeeb as well, for showcasing
thanks for helping me out,
battles.
Alpha, with the demonstrations.
I'm not sure if anybody else here has any other questions for stream. We kind of alluded to some Gen 5 stuff, but we saw a teaser for Gen 5 starters in the anniversary post from Pokemon Go today, so I expect it to be coming soon. You guys must be ramping up and trying to set Gen 5 on PvPoke as well, right? Like how prepared are you guys?
Well, we'll see what happens. Just a little bit ago, I was just messing around with some stuff.
He's constantly
But
messing around with the. Yeah, he's just
but
constantly working
we'll
on
see.
this.
Yeah. So with Gen 5, they aren't in the game master yet. We can kind of know what stats they'll have because there's
But
a
the
formula for
movesets is up
adapting.
in the
But the
air.
moves, yeah, they could be
Mm.
anything. So that's hard to predict for, but we can, if we wanted to speculate, we can kind of do some best case, worst case scenarios
That's
of
pretty
what
interesting.
they could look
And
like.
Gen
And we're-
5, by the way, for people who are not familiar, is huge. Over 156 Pokemons. And a lot of Pokemon Go players might not be familiar with the game. One of the future projects from the Go Stadium and is in works, and hopefully we can find a time that works for more people, is we might play a run-through of the Gen 5 games Black and White. And try and introduce. Yeah, it might be interesting, right? So if you guys are interested about that, definitely, I'm trying to push the project. I don't know if there's an interest out there. So if you guys are interested to see a playthrough or some kind of introduction to Gen 5 before it drops, and maybe, we can talk about more of the Pokemon Go side of things in terms of the stats, since we can calculate from the main series games. We can get the PvPoke guys back to give us a sneak peek of that. So were you about to show Superior out in battling already? Is that ready to go?
So you're not going to see Gen 5 stuff on the site until Gen 5 is actually here.
This
but,
is a secret site.
If we wanted to do a stream sometime where we play through Gen 5 and just speculate on PvP stuff on the side, that'd be fun.
That sounds pretty fun too. Yeah.
Yeah, and while we're at it, let's speculate with Vine Whip, Frenzy Plant, Leaf Blade, just because, those aren't good moves or anything.
Right. Actually,
sounds like-
Superior has some pretty nice moves to pick from. So, I don't know.
That
Anyway.
sounds absolutely terrifying.
For another
Meaty
time.
monster.
Okay. Any other closing word, guys? Otherwise, we could, call
Yes.
it end of stream. Yeah, go ahead.
I want to give a shout out once again to Garrett
Yes.
K. I believe he should be in the Discord, and you can tag myself, FlarkeFiasco, Garrett K, or KakunaMattata. If you have questions, just drop them in that PvP channel, especially things about the simulation or just about piggybacking in general or waiting or anything. We're going to release an article later that really goes over it in detail, but if there's an overwhelming Psyduck headache from the community about how this stuff still works, then we can triage that in the meantime before the article comes out.
Okay.
So we'll be happy to kind of jump in,
Cool.
support that.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much for having me on the stream. And this has been
pleasure.
a long time coming, and hopefully some of this made sense.
I think it made sense for me, but if it doesn't make sense, we'll see more comments in the YouTubes, and we'll try and get Kakuna to answer the questions on your YouTube comments if there are anything there. So yeah, we appreciate your shout out from the point of view. We want to thank Tristan and Justin, who was joining in earlier. Justin is still here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks
Listening
guys.
in,
Really
right?
appreciated it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So again, like how we've been doing in the previous streams, right at the end, we'd like to go give an extra support to the community. We are going to give a raid to someone else who is streaming Pokemon Go on Twitch at the moment. Looks like there's a streamer by the name of Clockwork Crow who is playing Pokemon Go on the bicycle. We'd ideally raid someone who's playing some PvPs, but I think Clockwork Crow seems like he's having fun on his bike. So
That's a
thanks
cool
again.
name.
Yeah, it's an interesting name. So thanks. The video will be up on YouTube. We might crop certain parts that might be interesting, when they're describing the mechanics into shorter videos. But the whole video will be up on YouTube at the end of tonight. So again, appreciate you guys for watching. We didn't hit our 500 followers for tonight, which was ultimately the goal. If we hit 500, remember guys, we do have a giveaway that we are trying to give out to a random follower on Twitch and Twitter as well. But maybe next stream, guys. Otherwise, hit us up on Patreon and support us there. Speaking of Patreon, we are going to put up all our big patrons on Patreon. And if you guys have a preferred display name, I think we sent a message out. But if you don't want to have your personal name and you want to have your wow, Muticus, which I think is either Indonesian or Malay name, dropped us a Twitch Prime subscription. Super appreciate that. And yeah, super appreciate the people on Patreon as well. So with that, I think we're going to end stream. I'm going to go give Clockwork Crow a raid, and then the next stream for the week, we hopefully have something planned for tomorrow. Keep an eye out for announcements for a stream tomorrow as well. If not, we should be, we're working on finishing up the jungle meta article, and then we'll make a video on that next week as well. Yeah, thanks for stopping by, everyone, and good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Alrighty, thanks for